Hello everyone, welcome back to the Addicted Bookworm, where my addiction's all over the internet. On this channel, I do library book hauls, book reviews, both physical and digital, audiobooks, and so much more. So, I am doing a review of The Running Man by Stephen King, written as Richard Bachman. Alright, so I checked this ebook out from the library because of the movie that was coming out in November. And also, I want to say that when I actually got this one, it was actually a different cover, but they updated the cover because of the movie. So just to let you know. So this is a 100 chapter book. But I gotta let you know that the chapters are extremely short. The most they have been is about, the most I have read, the most time I have read a single chapter was probably about 8 minutes. But a lot of them were like a minute, 2-minute reads, things like that. So it counts down from 100 all the way to 0. So The Running Man is a dystopian science fiction novella that was written by Stephen King as Richard Bachman. And the reason that Stephen King wrote under a pen name of Richard Bachman was because his publisher was very concerned about the bookstores being inundated with Stephen King novels. And so he took a pseudonym of Richard Bachman. So in The Running Man, we have a dystopian world where the haves and the have-nots are separated by wealth, and also they have their own different ouch, I got dry skin, by their currency. So the rich use what I believe it's new dollars, and the poor use like the older money. I think, hopefully I'm right about that. So Ben Richards is a man who's been blacklisted, and he's got a wife and a daughter, and the daughter is very, very ill. She might have pneumonia or something like that. And so in this world, you have like the major gaming company, and there are different kinds of games that people can take part in. And if they survive, they get paid a lot of money. They get paid like over $1 billion. So Ben Richards gets onto the show known as The Running Man, which is basically, unlike in the movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, which was confined to a arena, this is a like nationwide event. Everybody that is into this kind of stuff will either watch it or they will try to participate in some kind of way. So Ben Richards gets onto The Running Man, and he has to survive for 30 days. And if he survives for 30 days, he gets this money. So the first couple of chapters just has Ben Richards getting ready for his run. And he's, they give him good food. They give him books to read, which I thought was really cool. But Ben Richards is not an idiot. He knows that this is just to make him feel comfortable until he's ready to perform for the audience. And so when the game starts, before the game starts, he pays back a police officer that gave him some coins to call his wife, and then he sends money to his wife so that she can afford things. And the thing about his wife is that she pulls tricks. In other words, she's a prostitute. However, he's not upset about it. He's more worried. I think he's more worried about her than anything. but he knows that she's doing what she has to do in order for them to survive. So one of the things that he tells her is like, don't do any more tricks. So she says, okay, I'll stay home. So when he starts his run, he discovers that there's a lot of people that are into this game. And of course, he does something very good. He does a very good job in hiding. However, there are always people that will rat him out and everything. So as the story progresses on, he encounters so many different kinds of people. Most of them are, I would say most of them, but some of them are a little weird. There's a woman. Obviously, she's got something, mentally wrong with her. She invites him into her home, and then she suddenly remembers something about him that either might or might not be in her mind, and he has to run away from that. As the story progresses on, we don't really see or really hear much mention about the wife and the child. Yes, every once in a while, Ben will remember them, but he's more concerned and focused on winning the game than anything else. And then there's always an announcement of like, you've survived this many days, this is how much money you've made, and everything. The book really takes a kind of dark turn, and this should have been an indication to Stephen King fans that Richard Bachman was in fact Stephen King. I'm really not going to tell you what the dark turn is, but it is 7 layers of fucked up. Like, literally, it, when you read it as you get closer to the end of the book, and things get more desperate, and the gaming company knows there's probably a good chance that Ben Richard is going to win the grand prize. It gets more and more insane, more and more off the rails, and more confusing. Because he ends up becoming the company's best runner. And he kind of gets this offer to do something a little bit more than just be a runner. And so, of course, he takes the offer. So it's like it was a weird book. It was a weird book in itself. It was a good book. It was a really good book. I gave it 5 stars because somehow it managed to get recorded on Goodreads, even though I didn't want it to. But as you get to the end of the book, and he becomes more and more desperate to essentially win, or take it back, at this point, he probably just doesn't care. He just doesn't care about winning. But we get closer to, like, the end of the countdown, like, 001 and counting, or 000, and counting means that is the end of the book. And the end of the book is very different than the end of the movie that Arnold Schwarzenegger was in. It is not, I will tell you one thing. If you're expecting a happy ending in this book, you're not going to get it. You're not going to get a happy ending to The Running Man. The Running Man, nobody wins, nobody loses. It is just a problem. Now, I read somewhere that his death encourages the people to revolt against the government, which I didn't really see that in the book, but I guess that's what happens. So the book The Running Man really shows how dystopian this world is. It's very much, like I said, it's a science fiction dystopian book written by Stephen King. And it is one, I believe, of 2 dystopian books that he wrote. Which is why I'm going through every single one of Stephen King's books to pick up, things of like fantasy and adventure and dystopian and science fiction and fantasy and all that type of stuff. Because I want to kind of really get a good idea of the wide breadth of which Stephen King wrote. So unlike the Hunger Games, where the Hunger Games trilogy, where things turned out all right in the end. This one, as I said, nobody wins, nobody loses, and there's just a lot of there's a lot of carnage and a lot of broken dreams and a lot of blood, intestines, things like that. And it's sad. It's not a happy book. As I said, it's very different than the movie. In the movie, Arnold Schwarzenegger's character of Ben Richards essentially gets the girl and defeats this gaming company. But it also shows about how far a man will go to protect what he cares about. There is no line in the sand of what a man will do for his wife and especially his child. And it's sad all around about what happened to him at the end of the book. About how he threatened to burn the place down, and he actually does succeed in that threat. I think that when people go see the movie in November and they're expecting, Ben Richards to walk away from this, with $1 billion in his pocket, I think people are going to be very disappointed in that ending because it's not happiness that, but he does get this relief from, the worry and all that type of stuff. Also in the book, he's going down this pipe, and he's able to go down this pipe very well because he's underfed. It's like they do not feed the poor people well. The poor people, the only free thing they get is the television, and even Ben doesn't turn it on because it's just garbage. Everybody is addicted to their television. They want to see the Running Man or in the other games that are being played. And you get from this book about, first of all, how clever that Ben Richard actually is. He is a very clever man. And, he doesn't use it prior to the game starting, but he knows he has to use it in order to survive. And hope, his mind's eye is he's going to win this, he's going to get all this money, he's going to be wealthy, his wife and child will never have to worry about anything in their lives, all that. But dystopian novels do not always have to have a happy ending. They do not always have to have one. The Hunger Games trilogy was an exception where, the people that believed in democracy and rights and stuff like that won. And people that believed in controlling people lost. But sometimes, even like in 1984 and A Brave New World, those books where there really isn't a happy ending, this is one that also does not have a happy ending. And I'm kind of wondering, I think it's like, after the Running Man is the Gunslinger, which is, first you have like science fiction dystopian, and then you have fantasy, which is so weird, But you kind of, you walk away from this book with this impression of Stephen King really knew how to write dystopian. He he basically created a world where he just took everything away that people are used to and then just gave you the bare bones of a society. And of course, if you go look at some of the phrases, I'm not going to mention them because they're derogatory, but basically, people are going to look at it like, I really don't like that language because that's not how we talk, or that's not how a lot of us believe. And even though that belief is kind of, the number of people that don't believe that way is going down, and the number of people that believe that way is going up. I just won't repeat it. So there's a lot of social commentary in it about society, about wealth, about the haves and have-nots. And really, if you go look at Stephen King's childhood, he was born and raised in poverty, so he knows all about the have-nots. And of course, he's rich, so he knows a lot about the haves. So you have a guy who's writing from both experiences of, being part of the have-not, and then later on becoming part of the have. And about how people that have it all care so little about the people that have none, or very little. And this is in the United States, where it was founded on democracy and freedom. And Stephen King doesn't at all explain how this society was formed. It's just, there it is. There it is. So it's, like I said, it's very different than the movie that came out when Arnold Schwarzenegger was like the big action hero. And even he complained about the movie. About, if we had more money, the special effects could have been better. It's very much a performative society as far as your games are concerned. And people, they look at these running men that run to make money, and then of course they end up dead, as, they're just entertainment. They're not real people. They don't have. And what really ticked me off about one particular scene in the book was, I believe Ben Richards killed a couple police officers. And that part's not what upsets me, is they try to paint it as though, okay, what you did was worse than what we've done to people as a whole. Our genocide of poor people by giving them little bit of money, giving them hardly nothing to eat, that somehow what you did is worse than what we've done. And it just fucking pissed me off. Yes, those officers had wives, and yes, those officers had children. But if you treated the poor like they were human beings, and you made sure that they had enough food, then maybe this wouldn't have happened. Now, it would have happened in some other form, but it would not have happened in his hand. It also is designed, this is my own personal opinion, it's designed to paint the runners as bad people. Oh yeah, they're poor, they don't hardly have no food, they don't really have any money. So, and yes, they're doing this so they can provide for their family, but they're the bad guys because of what they had to do to try to win. And I'm reading this and I'm like, yeah, this is manipulation. This is social manipulation. This is society manipulation. You're manipulating society to turn on these people that you have forced them into the situation where they have to run in order to survive. They have to run in order to feed their family. So, yeah, somehow we're better than they are. And look at what they're doing. Look at how they're acting. and everything. And that pissed me off to no end because Ben Richards never asked to be in the Running Man. He volunteered to be in it because of the high payout. Because of the fact that, oh, for every day that you're alive, your family gets $100 new. So yeah, it is manipulation, and the government is very good at manipulating, the public. But then there are people in the book that are not blinded by what's going on. And even in the trailer for the movie, the new one that's coming out in November, one of the characters actually says to Ben, I think it's either want to bet the game is rigged, or do you think the game is rigged? And Ben says, well, we're gonna see if see about it, or see if it's true. One of the two lines. So there's kind of like this indication, or this kind of belief among more well-aware people that this game is that. Well, why hasn't anyone won this game? Why is it that Ben Richards, who turns out to be one of the best running men that the game company has ever seen, how is he able to survive? And quite simple is that he's far more cunning, he's faster, and really not everybody in America is on board with what they're doing. Ben Richards is probably one of the saddest characters I've read. What he does, how far he goes to provide for his family is very heartbreaking. And it is just a world that you never want to live in. You don't. Because it isn't that it is a unfair world. It is that it is a world that values entertainment, that does not look at these people as though they are people. And it's just it's a pure dystopian. It is a pure dystopian, and is also adding science fiction into it because of the technology and everything. Anyways, once again, I gave it 5 stars on Goodreads, even though I turned off my notification and everything. But yeah, so I went in there, and I have total 5 ebooks in my Libby. I'm gonna have 4. Yeah. Yeah, so anyways, I am going to end it here, and I will see you guys next time. Bye.